So I guess this tonight we were decided we were going to talk about dreams. We were talking about that last week, and I have had some dreams, but a lot of what I remembered are just these shattered bits and pieces, and I don't really have much to contribute in this past week. How about you guys?
I got nothing. I got personal things that I'm not willing to reveal.
Well,
Jeez.
okay. I can share my like okay, so I'm really excited about this whole dream thing.
Yeah.
And I did have a dream that I was able to write down this morning. I can read it to you guys if you'd like.
Yeah, definitely.
So, for our listeners, we exploring dreams and just documenting them and what they are and what reality that is when you dream. And so I'm just going to read the dream and we'll go from there. Okay, so this was this morning that I wrote this down, so I must have had it this morning. So I found out of nowhere, I found this video on habits of that billionaires use every morning, like little rituals that they do. And one of them, the very first thing that was mentioned in this video, for what it's worth, was recording your dream as soon as you wake up. So the moment I woke up this morning,
Yeah.
I recorded the dream, and then I did a few of the other practices that they mentioned. So, and I liked it. So here we go. I said, this is my first entry in my new dream journal. So I became friends with this young published author. I found out that in her real life, she had been given up for adoption. It would seem her true mother was a Russian witch. She had just published a novel, and now she was experiencing a lot of aspects of life. She was newly married to a young man. They had a very nice apartment. She was sassy, feisty. She had long dark hair and dark eyes, very pretty, very talented, very deep and confident, but needing help, very humble, knowing what she needed, very honest, very questioning. I just got to see her life and her process post publishing a successful novel. She was part of some fancy writers classes and a circle, and me and a couple others participated with her in that. I forgot what her novel was about, but it had already turned into some kind of show or movie. Her husband had met a good friend of mine through the 12-step program, and that's how I ended up meeting her. I can't remember their names though. I spent a lot of time with her husband before I even met her.
This is all in the dream?
Yes. And that is literally a fraction of the dream. The dream was so long. That was like the second phase of the dream. There was a whole first phase of the dream, and I'm giving you guys just the highlights. I mean, it was a very, very vivid, detailed dream. It was, and I don't know who these people are. I've never met any of these people. I've never seen any of these people, and they were in my dream. I'm like, whoa. So,
Do you remember anything from before? Like you said, there was more.
the part of before is very hazy, but it more had to do with my friend introduced, who I, of course I know who he is. He was in the dream. He's a very good friend of mine. He introduced me to her husband, and I think we were all kind of out and about, like doing kind of like nightlife stuff, like late night restauranting, and we might have gone to a bar, which is a little ironic considering I think there was some kind of a 12-step sober thing going on in there with the woman from the dream's husband. So, but I don't remember drinking or anything with them, but I do just remember me, my good friend, and her husband had a whole chapter before this other thing even opened up. It was in San Diego. All this took place in San Diego. That just came back to me. So that's where they were. Or at least that was where I saw her husband and my friend.
What's your relationship to this guy that you know?
He is like one of my best friends. He is like almost like a brother to me. And he lives here in LA, and he's a family friend. He's very close with my husband, my kids, even my parents. I know his family. Yeah.
Okay, so it's just so weird because you remember so much of this dream, and so when it's somebody you know, genuinely, you really are communicating with their energy in this dream. So, yeah, so he's presented something to you, or you're tapping into something from him.
Wow.
This is the communication that's happening between the two of you, and the symbology around the time that he was there in the dream will kind of paint, if you look in a symbolic way, what that meant. So any symbols around that, like for some reason you see, just an example, like you see his shoes, that's going to change the meaning of all of this. The fact that you saw shoes. Shoes have a different meaning. They'll tell a different story than just something that you protect your feet with. So, and the fact that you met people that you didn't know, people you don't know, you met them in your dream, what this usually means is they are some sort of entity that you are communicating with, and however they look is the symbol that they presented themselves to you in, or the one that you perceived from the energy that they're being right now and the message they're portraying, or the templates they're simulating for you to
Wow. Oh my God. That is so deep. This is all fresh information for me, Cheryl. Thank you. I never would have thought of that.
Oh, that's intense.
Yeah.
So they're entities.
Yeah. They're whoever's guiding you right now to get you to, like I said, however that dream made you feel, those feelings will kind of represent the templates that they're bringing up within you, or that you're playing with, that you're experiencing.
Wow.
So it could be like just seeing that and seeing the vibration changes to get her from there to there could be something that's sort of formatting within you.
I mean, it's similar to things that do like sometimes happen where you kind of meet someone and you get a real window into their life.
It could even be representative of a parallel life that sort of went that way, and you're able to perceive it in that sense in your dream, keeping it semi-conscious.
Wow. How did you feel right when you woke up? Did you feel good about it, or did you feel like...
I felt really good about it. I think that it has to do with I think the universe sent me that dream to show me to try to probably write more and publish more. And I also think that it was sent as a confirmation because the psychic told me that he didn't know me from Adam, he didn't know me at all. And he just pulled this out of nowhere, that I had this ability to reconnect children with their parents, but even adult children as well with their parents, or heal those relationships. So almost feel like that dream was confirming that, even though that psychic told me that like 2-3 months ago.
Wow.
Because she kept mentioning she was adopted. Like that kept getting brought up in the dream multiple times.
Well, most people, a lot of their negative beliefs are stemming from their parents, because when you're a kid, you don't really know anything besides your parents or your siblings. So they're really, and because you develop so much in the first part of your life, you kind of become who you are around your parents. So the ties to our parents, and especially when it comes to healing, it generally always kind of reaches back there at its core. Anything else that happens in your adult life will just sort of add to that template that's already there. So I don't know, might kind of have something to do with it if you think about it.
Okay, here's something really interesting. So all this happened. I actually woke up feeling very I liked these people. The kind of people that I like very honest, very vulnerable, very forthcoming, and just very unashamed, very like definitely had some issues, like troubled, but they weren't hiding anything. They were very transparent and very strong.
So
Almost like
I want to say that this was reflecting aspects of yourself. As some way that you know that you could be. Like maybe more how you would be if you really didn't have any negative beliefs that were sort of hiding and controlling you, because we all going through this, we all have that. And I think that it's more like your higher self. And so even though I would say it's entities, but they're encouraging those aspects of you. And really, even when we're talking to anybody, we're always talking about versions of ourselves. So that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that these people were showing you more of what you can feel like while living your life. So you were peeking into her reality, and that's kind of how you are, Ansley, in a way. You really learn through watching other people, and you do honor other people. You completely accept other people and are able to almost live vicariously through them, having strong empathy. So this is, I think, a good way for you to put that medium by saying it's her, but really that was you.
right. And interestingly enough, one of my other friends, I decided to break a habit this morning of, like, I'm one of those people that I'll check my phone the moment I get up. But I decided not to do that this morning. I went straight to writing the dream, along with a bunch of other little tasks. And then finally, maybe an hour after waking up, I did check my phone. And one of my good friends had sent me a link at 3 a.m, which, of course I didn't wake up, but I finally saw it an hour later after writing the dream, to a Lana Del Rey song that had literally just been released this month. And to be honest, the woman in the dream kind of seemed like Lana Del Rey, but like a younger version of her.
Yeah.
And this song was very attractive to me. It was very raw, very vulnerable, very poetic, great lyrics. It's, what is it called? I'm looking it up right now. So I definitely think that even someone sending, Cheryl, do you think that someone sending a song like that at 3 a.m. could have influenced my dream life like that? Or is that too big of a stretch? Because even,
Really.
Okay, the song, go ahead.
I was going to say earlier, I got off work and I was just sitting, imagining, just daydreaming about opening a restaurant and like all the different ways it would be. And I'd buy the plot next to it, and we'd have like a whole village, and everybody around would come to the restaurant. I even had to pick out like where this restaurant was going to be, how I would get this restaurant. Anyways, I walked out and I got something to eat, And my uncle looks right at me, and the first thing he says was, I mean, it'd be nice to open a restaurant, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think when she intended to send that to you, you literally just realized it in some way in your unconscious. Like, he doesn't know why he kind of thought we should open up a restaurant. It just kind of came to him.
Right.
I want to say I absolutely believe in that. Absolutely. I believe that, what Cheryl said before about, your consciousness is kind of communicating, outside of, the physical reality and inside like a dream state, even though it's still a part of a reality, just one we're not in touch with. I believe that, yeah, absolutely. She sent you that, message, and I believe that the contact was still there, and it just showed up in like another form. I totally believe that.
Mm.
Another interesting thing, that I came to realize, and Cheryl mentioned this years ago to me, and I've heard the bee say it, and it's a really, really fascinating thing when we're speaking about dreams. That even though we're communicating and connecting with other consciousnesses, and keeping in mind that we are all connected to every consciousness, like Cheryl mentioned in a few episodes ago about the different levels of consciousness, and branching all the way up to oversoul, and how we are vectors of an oversoul. So keeping in mind, that there, realizing that when you have a dream, everything in it is you at the same time. So all the circumstances and all of the people and all of the things are they're actually you.
Hmm.
So that's kind of a neat way to think about the connectivity you have with you or self and other people inside and outside of a dream state.
Right. I love that reminder. Like I always forget about that, but I do believe that. I do believe that everything in the waking state and the dreaming state, it is all an extension of me to some degree. It's some kind of aspect of me.
Yeah.
So
So I think for our viewers, I'll just say quickly, and what I really mean by that is, everything we have here in, physical reality is actually a mirror. And the way that we come to this conclusion is by understanding that, everything is energy, everything is one thing, it's just vibrating at different frequencies, right? And what that thing is, it's it's consciousness. Everything is, consciousness. And if you research it and look at it, like, what is consciousness? And consciousness is that which experiences itself. So it's almost like saying, you're sitting there and you're looking at your hand and you're saying, this is my hand. So everything else, falls into the same category in a way. So it's not just in the bathroom when you're looking at the mirror. Everything else you experience in physical reality is a reflection of something you believe yourself. Everything is a reflection of you, all based on your beliefs. And so that's another way to sort of get to that idea where, we are all, absolutely connected, and everything is a reflection of you, because it is just one thing.
I kind of,
On a mechanical level, I mean, it's a huge statement, right there. And, and I understand how it can be complicated, and I can understand how it's not necessarily easy to grasp that concept, when you're hearing it for the first time. But after, time and experiences and, realizations, and coming to the understanding that that's what it is,
mm,
like, I don't know if this is getting away from it too much or whatever, but like, I kind of was taking notes on this last night, and higher dimensions, just kind of like thinking in terms of dimensionality in dreams, because dreams are a lot like the experience of physical reality in higher dimensions. Similar, very similar. It's in sort of, I guess, the realms of the higher fifth density and whatnot. The way, in what you're saying, yes, it's all you in your dreams, and it's really all you in your reality. There is no out there. You're communing with other energies, but what you perceive is all kind of made out of you. And so, yeah, the way when you're dreaming, the dreamscapes, sort of like clouds floating by. All of a sudden, you're somewhere else. So it's like teleportation. And whatever you're thinking, you manifest. So it's kind of just, that's how we exist in the higher dimensions. More like we're floating around, and we might visit somebody like, whoa, hey, you know, we didn't have to get into the car to go to their house and knock on the door and them not be there, because it's kind of more slippery here. So they're there. You're like, oh, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm thinking about you. Oh, I'm thinking about you too. Oh, hey. But of course, when we're conscious there, it will be more of a manifestation of our conscious, in a sense, more of a conscious way, rather than dreams being something where we're sort of almost having a slow life review, and we're at the whims of whatever our unconscious is healing from.
Mm.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
No, I understand.
I think a lot of deep processing is done in dreams, and I think that in some ways they're more real than even what we experience on a daily basis. And that sort of goes along, I think, with what you're saying about them being more of the fifth density, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's sort of, we're manifesting and we're experiencing it. It's actually, and when we're dreaming, we're experiencing a higher density.
Right.
We're in our unconscious mind, and our unconscious, like Bashar says, even though it's on our proto, it's not really under, it's higher in vibration. Beliefs exist in a higher vibration. So when you raise your vibration, oh, you can see your negative beliefs everywhere, because you're conscious now at a higher level, the level of beliefs. So the dreams is like the template level, even higher than beliefs. And of course, the beliefs themselves are creating the reality, but we're seeing it from there. So the reason dreams aren't more euphoric, even though they are euphoric sometimes, and sometimes they're not, is because of we're still being at the whims of our unconscious, the lower levels being thoughts, feelings, beliefs, and higher than that, the unconscious, the collective unconscious, the individual unconscious, and then higher than the temple level. And even in dreams, you can go even higher than that and experience being the one, but you don't really retain that when you come back here. You just forget all of it. And when you die, you'll remember a lot more of yourself that you just couldn't perceive because you were at a lower dimension, density.
So it's like when we're having a dream and it's not necessarily, a lucid dream, we might feel like we're not in control of what's happening. We're just sort of going through it. It's still an experience for us. And I guess, like, even though it's still an experience, so if we're having a dream that we're, on, top of a high mountain, mountain climbing, we're still having that experience. Or if we're, fast asleep in our bed, we're still having a similar experience, because our brain doesn't really know the difference. It's just picking up the signals from, what our eyes are gathering, and showing our brain, and our brain is just trying to make sense of it. Like we talked about in other episodes, that our brain is the, receiver of everything. Our brain is in the dark, our brain is in our head, it doesn't really know what's going on. It's just making sense of it. So it kind of goes like what you said, Ansley, about processing, certain things. And I've also heard Bashar say, dreams are, they can be many different things. They're not always just processing things of the days and weeks that go by, and they're not always just messages from our higher self, or communicating and connecting with other souls and consciousnesses. It can be many different things.
I always have an aspect of myself, or a person in my dream, that's like this Black woman. She's really happy. She's a little heavy set, and she's always playing some role, like she works somewhere that I'm at, or she does something. Sometimes I kind of am her. Other times she's just a figure in the dream.
Your fairy godmother.
Yeah.
I don't know. She like symbolizes. There was this one dream that was super weird. I don't know if there's any interpreting this dream. It was so weird. Like, there was cows, but they were really little, and they were in packages, and they were in the freezer. They were too cold to move. They could probably, I thought
Oh.
they could probably get out if they weren't so cold. But, you know, everybody was just shopping and leaving them there. So I was like, oh, that's so
Hmm.
pretty. And then,
Wow.
I ate a gigantic cashew. And I hadn't left the store yet. So I was like, shit, I'm stealing this. You know, I shouldn't be eating this in the store. And that black woman and another black man, they said to themselves, they were saying to each other, she was like, you know, why are you born? Why are you incarnate? And
Wow.
he said, I came to kill the slave owners.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And they loved me. They didn't even care that I was eating the cashew.
Yeah. That's awesome. They were like, I'm you. Do it.
And I was like, they're cool with it. Like, I'm free. They support me.
Yeah. Wow, that's a killer takeaway. Maybe it's sort of something about, like, I don't know, a belief you have about yourself, and then coming to an understanding that you're freer than you think.
And the first part, this is the whole big part about the dream, was I was actually with like somebody that was my sidekick or sister. And we were on this little kid's toy, but it was going really fast. And I really wish that it wouldn't go so fast because it was hard to control. And I kept thinking I was going to crash. And there was this monk that was supposed to guide us, but he tricked us and led us somewhere else. And then he died. And I felt a lot of sympathy and compassion for him, even though he died because he abandoned us or whatever. He wasn't our tour guide. And that's when I found the store.
That's cool. I think one of the neat things about dreams, when everything in it, like I said before, about how even sometimes it's not, a lucid dream, we might not understand that we're in control of it, but it's still very malleable. Like you said before, how time doesn't make sense because time doesn't exist outside of physical reality. And also how, travel, doesn't necessarily exist the way that we experience it here in physical reality. It's sort of like, we're having, a dream, and, physical reality is a dream kind of thing, but it's just more physical because it's more crystallized, and that's the experience that we wanted to have. So it's really neat to come to that idea every once in a while. So I guess for our listeners too, whenever there's like something happening in our lives that we don't prefer, something that we're going through, a circumstance or this and that, we can sort of look at it from another perspective, like, well, this is an experience that I kind of wanted somehow, because there's going to be growth in it. There's growth in everything, really. So by changing our perspective of it and really coming to the realization that, like, this is something we signed up for, and what can I gain from it? What can I learn from it? What can I understand about what I believe about myself? Because like you said in the past, Cheryl, like, we believe so many things about ourselves, and we don't really realize we have these beliefs until we, start to uncover them and they show themselves, and whether they're good or bad or whatnot. But yeah, dreams are wild.
Yeah,
And I really
dreams
think,
always, they're like a journey sometimes with me. Sometimes I'll have a dream like that. And I notice that sometimes in my dream, um, I'll be thinking, sometimes I'll have negative beliefs. And I'm like, I wake up and I'm like, how was I so in fear of what these people thought about me in my dream? And that's more of a reflection of like the part of me that's completely unconscious, where I'm, just behaving fine, but that's really still operating. And then I'll have a dream where I feel really super confident. And when I wake up, I can feel the change from that. Like, whoa, I was just exactly who I want. Kind of like how Ansley said, I was exactly who I wanted to be. I was manifesting what I wanted to manifest. And then coming back into my body was a real eye opener. I was like, wow, I kind of need more work then.
wow. I remember in the past, when I was younger, I remember having dreams that were kind of reoccurring, and kind of there was a lot of similarities to certain ones. And me, going to bed some nights and being like, oh my God, please let me have this dream again, because I really want to go back there and have that experience. There's been a lot of interesting things like that. Now, this past week, when we were trying to, remember our dreams and write them down, like I started to say, I have like some shattered parts of a dream, and I'll share that of what was happening. And there's some similarities to other dreams that I've had when I was younger. So what I remember about this past week, I was outside and it was warm and it was sunny, and I was in a t-shirt, and I was with my son Ari, and we were on a dirt road, and there were trees on each side of the street. The trees still had some leaves on them, not all of them. The trees were relatively high. It was a dirt road that I don't really recognize. But we were playing catch with a tennis ball, all right, and we throw it back and forth a few times, and we noticed that not far above our heads, like just about the tops of the trees, maybe 20 feet, 15 feet, 20 feet or something, there is what seems to be like this bubble, but it's flat, that goes, out and across the whole sky, across everything. And what I mean by bubble is what a bubble looks like, the rainbow texture, like swirling, but like oil slick type of thing in the sky, not far from us, not far from the ground,
With its invisibility shield on.
Right. And so I throw the tennis ball up into it, and it like goes into it and then bounces back down. It like, it like stops the tennis ball and then throws it back down, and we think it's really neat. So I take the tennis ball again and I throw it really, really hard, and I throw it at this layer of oil or whatever it would be, this bubble film that's covering the sky about 10 feet up, 15 feet up, and it pierces through. And right when it does, Ari is now outside of it, on top of it, and he's enormous. His like face is like the whole sky. And right as the tennis ball breaks through this bubble thing, I become the tennis ball, and I
Whoa.
also become Ari, and I'm looking at the tennis ball, not going away from me from when I threw it when I was standing on the dirt road, but I'm experiencing the tennis ball coming at me right into my face. And right when it happens, right when it gets very close to me, I'm able to fly. I'm able to fly around in this area, this scenario with these trees on this dirt road, and it's really, really neat. I'm having a great time, and it's a lot of fun, and I feel amazing that I can fly around like this. And I recognize that feeling, and I've felt it before in other dreams. And this was something I realized in the dream state, that, oh, this is familiar. I know this. I'm flying. I can do this. And then it shifts, and all of a sudden I'm in a city type of scene, and I'm on top of the buildings, and I can fly from tops of buildings back and forth. Now, the city that I'm in isn't like New York City. It's the buildings are made of brick. It's still relatively sunny out, but the sun is going to be going down. It seems to be like there are these there's like old gigantic like signage like on top of these buildings, but they're not on yet because the sun is still out. And I'm flying back and forth, and I can feel the like wind like on my face and on my shoulders, because I'm wearing like a t-shirt, and I'm having a great time going back and forth, basically jumping across the street. I'm jumping from one building to another, but I'm like floating or flying, and it's a lot of fun. And then I know that what's going to happen, and it does happen, is that I'm losing my flight ability a little bit. I'm forgetting how to do it. And I'm standing on top of one of these buildings, and I'm getting ready to go back over the other side, but I'm not sure enough if I can remember how to fly. And I feel it just leaving me, and I feel so sad about it, because I'm like, damn, like this happens. Like I learn this and then I forget it, and I'm forgetting how to fly. And there are these cables that are going across the street, like these telephone wires, or these electrical cables that are going across from building to building. And as I make the leap to go back across, I'm starting to fall. I can't hold it anymore. I can't fly. So I grab onto these cables, and now I'm just like swinging across, like hand over hand, getting myself to the other side. And it's difficult, and I'm getting slowed down, and I'm like, damn, this is neat, but I really wish I could remember how to fly, even though I was flying like a moment before. And I crawl into the tops of one of these buildings, and there's a hole in it, these brick buildings, and it looks like it was maybe under construction, or it was damaged or something. and there's like this hole in the building, and I'm like, I'm just gonna stay here. And I wanted to go to sleep in this hole in the top of this building, but there was this like sludge inside of it, and I got it all over my hand. And I was like, oh well, I'll have to clean it off, but I'm just gonna hang out here until I can remember how to fly again. And it ended shortly after that, but that was basically like most of the experience. And when I woke up, the feeling I had was just incredible. I felt this feeling in my stomach and in my chest. Like I totally went there and I did that and I experienced that. And the feeling of that flight has been something that's been reoccurring in many dreams when I was a child. And I was sad, that it went. And I really, really wanted to go back so I could experience it more and experience it again. So I held on to that. It was very, very strong. It was as thick as, I don't even know what, when I woke up, I felt it in my chest. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, like now I got to wake up and go to work in this day, like this reality. Like, I want to go back to my dream, even though I didn't understand what was going on. That was really
So what had happened at first? You were throwing things against this bubble.
Yeah, it was a green tennis ball.
Yeah, you were trying to penetrate this new vibration, if you will, this new activation. And the reason Ari was there is because when you get activated or when anything happens to your blood, it directly reflects those, it connects to those who are most connected to you. And because you're more connected to Ari, because he literally came from you, you were merged with him while you were receiving the activation so that he could receive it too, in a sense you could say. So then the activation, it caused you to astrally project. That's what the whole flying and bouncing thing was. And it was a higher state of being. So when you dropped your vibration, it was to try to get you to bridge the gap, try to get you to do it yourself rather than the thing that you had penetrated doing it for you. It was like, okay, now you do it. And it was good that you remember the feeling, because the feeling is, essentially how you can get back there. It's just by feeling.
Wow.
You were dropping vibration. Hold on, I wrote this down. The wires was your permission slip to stay connected, like the energy wires there. And so you use them to kind of try to simulate it for longer, because the longer you can simulate it, the more you'll gain. And then the whole is your unconscious, your subconscious mind, and all the symbol of the negative beliefs that's ultimately stopping you from flying.
Wow.
What blesses one blesses all, especially those closest to us. I've noticed that for sure, that it's like something happens to me and then it's like I can't change people, I can only change myself, but then they end up changing.
Wow.
I end up finding different versions of them. But that is a really, I feel like that dream should be made into like an animated film or something. It's very abstract and like interesting, like metaphysical cartoon.
Right. I think sometimes, when I have some of these dreams, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this too, when they're just so vivid, you wake up and you're like, wow, like that was like so real. And I've also I've heard from other spiritual teachers and other advisors in regard to what happens after we experience this life. We kind of wake up, and it's sort of like a dream state, like when we pass on, when we die. It's like, wow, that was so real.
Yeah, you wake up then in the dream.
Yeah.
This what we're calling reality
is the dream.
This is the dream. Like, we're more awake in our dreams than we are. This is the dream. Like, our daily life, when we're up at 7 in the morning until midnight at night, that's the dream.
Yeah, this is the experience we're wanting to.
Eventually, we're going to bridge the gap, and that's going to be our waking state.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so we'll be like in the dream all the time, but we'll be able to not control, but allow the manifestation and be in acceptance of what we're manifesting. We'll know if we see somebody, it's because we're merging our energies in a sense, and we'll have experiences in a different way. We'll have experiences when they're relevant only. Everything will be a product of synchronicity.
Mm-hmm. It's already happening more and more. I can see I call it the distorted dream. I can see the distorted dream breaking for a lot of aspects of our society. I can just kind of see it. I think things are getting more and more purified and true, and more what you're saying, that what you're describing, with more synchronicities and more preferred experiences, probably more honesty and authenticity, more unity.
You can't be dishonest when whatever you're feeling is going to be represented, and it'll be literally manifested in front of you. If you're feeling like shit, you're going to see a big shit monster. I'm not supposed to cuss. And somebody else will see the shit monster. You feel like shit. Look what you're manifesting.
Right.
Illuminate. They will see your aura. They'll see what you're manifesting. They'll say, "Oh, geez, what's wrong?" Or "Wow, I love the way you're feeling right now." There's no hiding anything. Secrecy. There's no stopping the merging. Like people say, "Oh, you got to have the right borders or whatever." You can't stop yourself from merging with other people. You're merging because you're manifesting similar vibrations because of who you're being right now and what is in the unconscious coming forth. So you wouldn't blame anybody else. You just see it's all you.
So just before we were talking about death and death in dreams, and there was I think I've shared this with you actually in the past. There was a reoccurring dream I've had. I haven't had it in a long time, but I remember having it many times, exactly the same when I was little, maybe like a teenager, I guess. And in that dream, I would die. I'll share with you what that was, and it was also another dream that was extremely vivid, and it made me feel messed up like the whole day after I would have this dream. And it would start like this. The dream was black and white, first of all, which was really interesting. And it was in first person and also third person, where I would see myself, and I would also see it through my own eyes. The scene was, like I said, black and white, but it was like in the city, but the streets were cobblestone. It was like brick. And I remember it being really chilly. And I remember I was wearing like a suit. And I remember the cold air, I can feel it coming down the collar of my shirt and up my wrists on the suit that I was wearing. I can feel the cold air, and I can see the steam, coming out of my mouth as I breathed, okay? And as I'm walking down the street, I can hear the reverb, like the click-clack of my shoes bouncing off the walls of the nearby buildings and off the cobblestone street that I'm walking down. And in the distance, it's very foggy, and in the distance, I can hear a large horn, like sort of like a fire horn just going off very far away, very subtle, like a big foghorn. Also in the distance, beyond the buildings, I can see red lights up in the sky, like a tower or something. They're illuminating and then going off and then illuminating. And because it's so foggy, the lights were, very much like emphasized, like they were large. And there was, it was nighttime, really, so I couldn't see many clouds, but it was, like I said, it was foggy. So I'm walking down this street, and I have a purpose. I have to go down the street and then make a right turn into this building. And as I'm walking, I'm flipping a coin. Now, I don't normally do that in my daily life. I don't necessarily flip coins, I'm not like a gangster or something, but that's what it seemed like, this Al Capone type of gangster, top hat type of thing. So anyway, I'm walking And I make a right turn, and I grab the handle of these double doors to the building, and the doors are made of glass, and they're heavy. And I remember how it felt when I wrapped my hand around the handle of the door. It was really cold. And I was just, anxiously waiting to get inside of this building. So I open the door and I step inside, and it's very, very warm inside. It's like a little foyer. So it's the outside double doors, the glass doors, and then a little room. And then there's two more doors for the entrance of this building. And inside, right when I walk into the foyer, there's a grate on the floor that's like the whole floor. Maybe it's like, I don't know, like 6 feet wide by like 4 feet or something like that. Like a little room you walk into. And underneath the grate is a fan, and it's blowing up this hot air, and it's extremely loud. And I can feel the warm air blowing up the, cuffs of my pant legs. And it's like warming up my legs. And I'm like, wow, this is so nice. And I get like goosebumps, and like the hair sticks up on my arms, I'm like, oh, this is so nice. And I sit there for a moment because it's really warm. And there's a cork board with pictures and stuff written on it, held up by thumbtacks. And I remember looking at it for a little while, and I can't remember what was on this corkboard, but I remember standing there and just like procrastinating going anywhere else because I'm so happy it's warm in here, So then, a moment later, I grab the other double doors, and I'm still flipping this coin too. I'm flipping it as I walk through. I'm flipping it as I'm standing there. I flip it through flipping the coin as I walk into the next double doors, the entryway to get into the building. And directly in the doors are two staircases. One is going down and one is going up. So you walk right into a stairway, walk right into a landing, really. And the stairs that go up is maybe like 6 or 7, steps. Then the stairs that go down are maybe 6 or 7 steps. And there's a hallway up and down, right? So as I approach the stairs to go up, the coin I'm flipping, I miss it. The coin falls out of my hand, and it goes ping, 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 ping on the step. And right as it does, somebody steps out from the top steps there, 6 or 7 steps up, with a gun and shoots me.
Whoa.
And right as the bullets go inside, the bullets, they hit me, and they're burning. They're burning hot. And it takes my breath away, and I can't breathe. And then a second later, I'm outside, right where I started, and I'm flipping the coin, and I do it again. I do the whole thing again. And I do it again and again. So every time I die, I would just go right back to the beginning. And I would wake up from this dream, and I'd be like, oh my God, why can't I do it? Like, what am I missing here? So that was like a really interesting thing, to wake up from that vivid dream, like, oh my gosh, that was so real. Like it really happened. Like it was another experience, like another life, it's like totally crazy.
Well, it's cool too, because you got to face that fear of being shot without actually being shot.
Right. Well, I think I know I know it's going to happen, but there's something telling me that I got to hold on to this coin, and I'm like, oh, I'll try it again, and then I die. Oh, I'll try it again. And I die.
Yeah, the coin is really interesting because I like how one of the things that I first learned from Bashar that has really stuck with me is, what is your best option right now? What's your highest point of passion right now? And so we're constantly having all these different options. And so the coin is like, it's almost a surrender where you're like almost leaving it up to the universe or something, like heads I go this way, tails I go that way. Flip, okay, it's heads, I'm going this way. And just constantly pausing, because that's how we're supposed to live, actually, is where we are supposed to pause and be like, okay, what's my highest point of passion now? How about now? And when people have cognitive dissonance around me and they don't know what to do, I say, what's your highest point of passion?
Right.
I just straight up ask them. So that's interesting. And the coin is just, it's sort of it's a simple symbol as opposed to all these infinite parallel realities that we're constantly going in and out of every nanosecond.
Yeah, I got the
Plank-
same thing from that you did, Ansley, with the coin flipping.
I saw it. Do you all know anything about, like, what do they call it? The mirror neurons?
Mirror?
Neurons that wire together, fire together. Is that what you're getting at?
I mean, the reason I ask is because I'm not exactly I haven't done a lot of research of what that is, but when you were telling your story, I could see certain things. Like, I could see the coin flipping, because and what's responsible for that is apparently our neurons are communicating. So when you describe a story, you're reliving it in your head, and me and Cheryl, and probably people who are our listeners, are able to view it as well. They're able to see what you see.
Kind of. You're seeing your interpretation, but you can actually pick up on the energy of it too, which can guide your manifestation. Yeah, I felt like, and Trent, you actually are very good at doing that, at just putting the energy vibration into the story, and I don't know, I can just see it.
Well, I think a lot of times, when I'm able to speak like that, I understand the idea that, a lot of us are very visual. So when we have vivid dreams, when we're able to sort of articulate our thoughts, or rather, verbally paint the picture or scene of what was happening. So to be really descriptive with all of the things that I was able to remember, it's easy for, listeners like you guys to, hear that stuff, and then, like you said, Cheryl, interpret it in your own way. So the scene that I was living or having in that dream might be a little bit different from what you guys were there, but also, like you said, the energy is, I feel like I'm able to, portray it well enough for you to get a really, really good understanding of what it is that I'm trying to convey, and it's only because the dream was very vivid. Like, I've had other dreams that are just like totally like, I don't remember if it was cold. I don't remember if it was, sunny. I don't remember this. I don't remember that. But
Well,
sometimes I have things that are very vivid.
all that, actually, it's so cool. You're very, what is that, like, sentient, I guess, because the coldness, the fact that it was black and white, this is representing that this is something. This is less of an of a astral travel, which we do in our dreams a lot, and this was more of an unconscious journey. So the black, the whiteness, the fact that it was winter, it was cold, it was dark outside. This is hinting to unconsciousness. And so this is a lot of like what the Carl Jung dream interpretation kind of goes along with. So cobblestones represent the fragmented reality, the fact that you're really getting into your exploring your negative beliefs. The horn falling from the background and the lights. This was sort of like what I think about guiding ships not to hit the land. So it's sort of a guide. It's telling you, come this way, the horn, the lights. The fogginess also represents it as your unconscious mind. The flipping of the coin represents, like what Ansley said, possible realities. Going into possible. You said there was a board with like some notes pinned to it or something?
Yeah, there was a cork board in the foyer with pictures and stuff on it. And I spent a few moments just, zoning off and staring at it, because I really enjoyed the hot air coming up from those big fans under the floor.
So those represented other parallel realities, parallel lives, stuff for you to tune into. And you were kind of sitting there, and even then you were maybe in a little bit of a hesitation, but I do also think that the sensation that you were feeling was grounding your physical body in with whatever this vibration is happening. So that really did have a purpose. But then with the, you opened the door, you went into where you could go to one possibility, Adora Pandora. So you were going into what could be different possible realities, but what's stopping you, that fear. So the reason why you kept repeating that sensation of, getting shot and being afraid of getting shot is because that's sort of helping you to, you're hitting the brick wall with your head. You're hitting the brick wall. And eventually that brick wall is going to fall down. And so this is just a way for you to feel the energy of doing that. So that when you go to face things in your real life, you might have a little bit more courage because you've had a lot of practice.
Oh, wow. You're so good. You should interpret dreams for people.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with this stuff. I've looked at all, you know, the symbology. You can even kind of get into like thinking along the lines of totems, but you know, just all these different things. Like I love it when people can remember items because it's super easy to interpret it when there's lots of symbols.
Right.
You know, it was interesting. We, at the very end of last week's call, you mentioned the thing about if you see shoes, random shoes in a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw a pair of shoes on a very busy street here in Los Angeles, like minutes after we hung up, a pair of brown shoes, just both of them left in the middle of the road. What does that mean?
Yeah, you know, even the Native Americans believed that when they would see, you know, a day that they would see a hawk or whatever, and they would actually tell a story with certain things that they would see or dream. Like if they had a dream about something, they'd go to the tribal elder and tell them, I had this dream. And he would tell him, you know, well, that's because there's this thing to look out for, or congratulations, you've actually upgraded spiritually. And that's what this was. This was the great spirit coming to you or whatever. So they believe that even like, you know, what you would see in your daily life, things like that could have some meaning in that way. So, you know, and then other times we really are sort of manifesting our fears.
Mm.
It's all just your story. You're the one telling it anyways, you know. Like, how did it make you feel to see those shoes? You were, you remembered seeing it. So it kind of like jumped out at you like, oh, wow. So the fact that you remembered it makes it more significant.
Mm.
Right. I mean, I guess I just realized I like to think about my life is, I like to interpret my life the same way I'd interpret a dream. So when all of a sudden I see a butterfly or a monarch butterfly flying towards me, I might, just like if I dreamt about it, I may treat it as if I dreamt about it because this is a dream too. And I'm very interested in the lucid dreaming, like being able to align with the reality in the physical that I would like to, because I think it's first you get better and better at aligning with the emotional states and the vibrational states, but then to actually deliberately be able to pull down the physical nature of it,
Yeah.
I think is like a next level.
Yep. You get used to the energy of it. It's like a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like how you can hint to somebody, hey, like how I was like, hey, you guys ready to do the show? And you fathomed it. And you're like, okay, not this week, but next week. But you got into the vibration of doing it. Like this time I said, hey, do you want to go on camera? You guys are fathoming it. And so you're not ready to now, but the fact that I had said, hey, why don't you? Now you're getting into the vibration. Now next time you'll be ready. So I don't know, kind of. This is all a dream, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's wild.
I was super excited to talk about this because I've just always been thinking about this kind of stuff.
I can
Cheryl,
remember. I was going to say, you know, there was an experience I've had, and it was a few years back. I was sitting on the couch and I dozed off. So it wasn't like I was in a deep sleep because I only dozed off for a short amount of time, maybe like 20 minutes. And in that short amount of time, I had like this horrendous dream that, again, dealing with death. But in this dream, I had this strange experience after I died. So I'll tell you a little bit about this, where dream, I was sitting on the couch and I fell asleep for a moment. I guess I was tired or whatever. In the dream, I was in that same spot. I was in the same body. I was in the same house, and I was, sitting on the same, couch, and I laid down and I died. I just
Hmm.
stopped, like, I just, died. And what happened was the belief that I had, which I'm not sure if it's what I believe anymore, but this is what I came to understand at that chapter in my life or that day, that what right as I was about to pass on, right as I was about to die, take my last breath, my body started to tingle and my everything started to like glow. And what I got out of that, like what I felt like was happening in my dream, is that my brain was sort of, you know, turning on all the way. And the way I interpreted this back then was that my last breath, my brain acting as a muscle was fully turning on, and what it was doing was getting ready to push my soul out of my body. And what happened was I took my last breath, everything started to get really bright and vivid and fluffy and neat. And I took my last breath, and then all of a sudden I was outside of my body. I just pushed out of my head, and I saw my body lying there, and I was like, oh, okay, so now I'm dead. And I was able to, again, I was able to float in the room that I was in, and I was able to look around, and I felt pretty good. I felt at peace. I was a little bit sad that my human body was dead, but I was still having the same experience. Like, I was still in the same house. I was still right outside of my body, and everybody I knew and loved was still all around, but they didn't find my dead body yet. And something was happening to me as I was floating around. I was able to pass through the walls in the house, and I was able to float up to the ceiling, and then look up to the second floor, through the floor of the second floor, and then come back down. And I felt like I was dissipating. I felt like it was going away.
Wow.
Sort of like this forgetting thing again, when I was forgetting how to fly slowly. Like, I knew I was forgetting it. And I was like, why can't I remember? It's slowly disappearing and losing my power. So I was sort of fading away. And what I was doing is I would draw energy, right? In this dream, I would draw energy from lights. There were light sconces and lamps. I would take energy from the light bulbs, and it would give me more energy to float around and exist longer, right? And the more I chose to float and go past through walls, it would take more of my energy. And then I was taking energy
Hmm.
from the hot air.
Hmm.
So everything around, I knew that I was making everything cold in that room, and I knew that I was taking all the energy from the light bulbs. And I was really sad that I couldn't figure out a way to stay longer, because I
Hmm.
was slowly disappearing. And it was a short amount of time where I was in that form, that spirit form or whatever it was, outside of my body. And I was just drawing from whatever I could, the electrical energy and the heat energy and whatever, just to let myself exist a little longer, until I totally just turned into nothing. And then right when that happened, I was able to, wake up. And my sister, she came into the room right as I was waking up. And what I said to her was, I was like, hey, I know what happens after you die. And she was like, what?
Hmm.
And then I just explained to her this whole experience that I had. It was like 20 minutes. I was just like dozed off. And I'll always remember that. That was like a really wild and a weird thing. So it was kind of like a dream, but it was sort of like a daydream, I guess, because I didn't like go to bed and I wasn't in like a
It was
deep
a
sleep cycle. But
it was a it was an astral projection, and you were actually manifesting another physical body out of the energy of things, because when you do that, you have to fuel it. And so even entities that exist in like hybrid kids end up absorbing energy from the world around them. You see spaceships when they go underwater, they're absorbing the energy of the water. And fairies do this when they create a physical body. It's temporary body. They absorb the energy from the trees, the
mm,
air, and everything like that. And they even have like DNA, but it's all temporary. Then it decoheres. The spirit, of course, doesn't need anything to fuel it. But when you were talking about the underworld, the realm of the dead, book of the dead,
Yeah.
yeah, even some shamans, or I think Egyptians, call sleep little death. So when they talk about death, they don't see it as an end like we do. They see death as the other side. And when we die, of course, we go into the other side. So shamans and stuff like that, when they're talking about the underworld, the realm of the dead, they're actually just talking about the spirit world. And so, yeah, you were in the higher dimension. So,
That's wild.
yeah.
So it's neat that you said that, the Book of the Dead, the underworld, this and that. I wonder what the interest, like it's a really interesting thing that we have this like conditioned belief to have a lot of fear about, the spirit world, because a lot of times, when we're younger, and I mean me, of course, when I was younger, like I thought the spirit world was like loads of mutilated bodies, like spirit people, roaming around, and it was scary. I
Yeah.
never thought it was like a beautiful, like, existence. I thought it was like this, like, 'cause I guess I watched too many horror movies when I was younger, like ghost movies, so I don't
Because we
know.
don't know any better. We're scared of it. We fear death, so we have a negative connotation. When our loved ones die, we're sad. We don't realize that we can still talk to them. They're not gone. They just change. But
Yeah.
we're scared because we don't know any better. Yeah. That's why death has a negative. But the Egyptians, and a lot of shamans and stuff like that, they didn't fear death. There's some of them, like the Aztecs, all committed suicide.
Mm.
And that's got such a negative connotation, but to them, they were just like, let's just go sooner,
That's wild. So I guess a little bit.
I've heard, just to say, I've heard that all fears stem from the one fear of death. That's where all the fears stem from, is fearing death.
I think it's a little bit more. I think that the reason we fear death is the same as it's just a negative belief that we're not supported. That it can be a conglomerate of a bunch of negative beliefs. That's just.
But death, yeah, I mean, death is like, I mean, it's not real. It's like, it's a change. It's kind of like when ice turns into water, or water turns into steam. It's just different forms.
Mm-hmm.
We fear change. We fear not being secure or whatever. We fear the allowing. We fear that. It's really just not allowing. Not being allowed.
But that's cool. I like what you said about the simulation. I think a lot about simulations, and the Trent's dream, where there is that simulation of like facing death, and what you described. I mean, that is that process of the transitioning, and it seems very accurate, like, because sometimes when there's other entities in a room, it'll get colder. And what you said about walking through the walls, but it taking energy, it's like everything is, there should not be any reason why we can't walk through walls now, other than belief. It's just we have such a strong belief that that's a hard surface. But it's interesting, for once you died in the dream, that you could walk through the walls, but it still took a lot of energy because of that heavy belief system around it. That you can't do it.
Like on Sasani, and when you're dreaming, you teleport. So you really have no limitation there. But think about how, like, when people see UFOs, the UFO will be appear in one part of the sky, and then they'll teleport to another part of the sky. And it's just because they tune their frequency to the same frequency as the sky over there rather than the sky over here.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
So they deliberately just tune their frequency,
Mm.
Yeah.
which we can do too.
We can do. And you know, like in dreams, we fly. As a spirit, we can fly. We can just go over there, go over here, or like I said, even better than fly, we just teleport, literally just complete freedom. So not only like, yeah, you can with your beliefs do that to your inert, like dense physical body, but our real true selves, this kind of thing is effortless. We do it constant. Even right now, we're projecting ourselves into gravity, but that's also because of the collective
Conscious agreement.
consciousness, that literal level of consciousness
Right.
that we're beneath. We're experiencing our reality beneath. So if we're still under that, it's definitely not going to be probable for us to phase through walls.
Mm.
But soon we'll definitely always be doing that. We'll travel via teleportation, flying.
Mm.
And
So,
we'll just we'll skip time. We'll be tomorrow, and then we'll go back to last week, and then things will be like that. That's how human experience one day will be.
so speaking of, a little bit off topic, alternate realities, that we're experiencing this past 2 weeks there's been something that I've been researching. Like, you guys know that I'm like an avid researcher of ancient civilizations, right? And, one of the most interesting things that I came across and it's been blowing my mind. I'm wondering if you guys might have any insight or any know of it. Have you heard of mud floods?
No.
No. Have you ever heard of the Empire of
Is that
Tartaria?
like where mud flood, where there's like a mass wipeout of a city or a population?
Yeah, so there's been places all over the US and places in Australia, places in Europe where there's these significant, um, I guess, red flags where, there's many, many, many buildings and whole towns and cities that are underneath the ground and they're just built on. And the history of the buildings and underneath those buildings have just been completely wiped out. All right. So I've been researching this, and it's like really, really fascinating to see that like there are so many places where these old historical buildings and houses have been built on top of other houses in many, 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 many places. And like underneath the roads and, very, very far down. And there's like all these explorers and geologists that are, it's really coming out, that the idea of these places due to this something called a mud flood that wiped out, just like you said, many places, and it's just been covered up and it's not part of our history anymore. So it's almost like it's not part of our, like it's been shut out of our reality because it's not like there's no history of it, right? So while I'm researching this, I came to find, researching old maps. Okay, this is really wild. Old maps of the world. And I'm talking about like, 18th century and 16th century maps. And there was a place, a large, large place, a population of like almost like millions of people. And it was called Tartaria. Have you guys heard of Tartaria?
No.
So it's not in any of our history books. It's not anywhere. There's no flag for it anymore. What the flag used to look like, I saw a flag, a Tartarian flag, of the flag of Tartar. And it was yellow and it had a black bird on it. It was a picture of the flag, and it was a huge population. And it was all the way by the Caspian Sea, which on this map that I was looking at, it was called the Tartarian Sea back then. And it went all the way over to, up to China, all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, which was also called another part of the Tartarian Sea. So the Tartarian, it was an empire, this huge, huge empire. It was basically all of Russia, some of China, and it's been totally wiped out. It's been covered, and it's not in any of the history books, and it's been totally wiped out by it's just been erased, just completely erased. And the only way we can find this is in old maps. And as we go through further and further in time, the maps are updated and things change and everything. And the whole land, the whole empire of Tartaria has just been totally gone, right? So this is like really wild for me, and I'm having a really interesting time, checking this out. So just yesterday, a really neat thing that I came across and realized is that in our first episode of Esoteric Wisdom, I spoke about my panic attack disorder that I had and overcame, right? And I felt like I was skipping realities or living in alternate dimensions and having a hard time remembering what dimension I was in. And it was very, very frightening, right? One of the things that I was checking out, researching on YouTube back then were videos on alternate realities. And one of the ones I distinctly remember, and I've watched it a few times because it was so neat, were these accounts that were written or taken on people who have, came publicly and had these episodes where they were not in the appropriate reality. And one of the stories was a young man who was in an airport and he had his plane ticket and he was ready to board his flight. And when he got to the desk, his flight wasn't the same flight on his ticket, and he was headed somewhere else that didn't seem to exist. It was a city that didn't exist. And he started to have like a freak out. He was yelling and he was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I have, a house here, and my wife and my children, we live in this city. I just want to get back. This was in New York where he was. He was going back to this place. And they approach him and they try to calm him down, and they bring him to, one of the rooms in the airport, and they speak with him. And he has all this appropriate documentation, like a passport and an address and a license and a ID. And where he lived was this place called Tartaria. And he showed a map of,
Whoa.
he drew over the map that we have today. He drew over all these areas that was what he thought was Tartaria and where he comes from and everything. And it sent like goosebumps up my spine of my whole body when I watched this back then. I was like, that is so like crazy. So this guy was having a complete meltdown because everything he knew and loved and where he was going just was gone. It was different. It was just a different reality. And this guy, he was, like I said, taken into a room and tried to calm down and get an idea of what he was going on about. He disappeared from the airport that day. They don't have any record of him leaving. They just have a record of this incident, of this happening. And it was, in the video I watched, it was a clear sign of of many in this video of people who ended up in alternate realities. So, and this was 2 or 3 years ago, right? And I'm just remembering it now. And then on my YouTube, because that's where I do a lot of my research, Tartaria is popping up all over the place because I was searching mud floods. So I'm like connecting all the dots to this really, really interesting thing. And it's like one of the wildest things for me to, understand that we like there are people that can control the present by altering the past, by hiding it, by covering it up and changing it. And by controlling, the past, they control the present. And of course, that means they control the future as well. So there's all this, what it boils down to, I'm trying to tie this into the idea of the beliefs that we are conditioned to believe, about, passing on to the spirit world and the underworld as being scary, as UFOs and alien abduction being a scary, horrible thing. And just a lot of this fear-based stuff and a lot of misconceptions that we have because we are misled in so many different ways. And one of the biggest things that I'm seeing now, what I'm getting to the bottom of with my research, is that there's been a whole empire that has been completely eradicated from our existence, and nobody remembers it. Nobody remembers it. It's not in any textbooks. It's not in any history books or anything like that. But it is still there. And yeah, it's just blowing me away. So I guess, for our listeners and for you guys too, like if you maybe check it out, go look it up a little bit, look up Tartaria. You're gonna be like, what? Or look up mud floods. Look up the recent activity in mud floods. And I'm learning now a lot of what happened is in 2012, Vladimir Putin released from these Russian archives a lot of information, history. And since then, a lot of these, stories, a lot of these old, maps and old documents and I guess trade routes and stuff like that have been, released to the public, and people are seeing now and now kind of opening up their eyes to, hey, there's a lot of other history happening with our planet that we don't even know about. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, do you know much? Like, I heard something that Edward Casey said that Putin was like, basically, I mean, he made some prophecy about Putin way back when, before Putin was even around, that he was a big key to the world, like, waking up. I mean, did you do any have you seen anything like about that in your research? And
Yeah.
also, when you said that, I was thinking about like 2012 and how that was a huge kind of point of, who knows, like, I don't even know what happened in 2012, but something kind of, some kind of global timeline changed, I think, right around that time.
Yeah, there's a lot of beliefs on what happened in 2012, whether it was kind of the, like whether the world really did end, and we didn't experience it. Some other people did, but I guess we didn't. Or there's a lot of different beliefs about what happened in 2012. But when it comes to Putin, one of the things that I really think that is interesting, and this is in regard to disclosure on ET communication, ET contact, ET presence with our planet, that there are many people, like, we're talking about like the president of the United States, like even Eisenhower had he wanted to go further investigate the military operations and see further into what we were on about in regard to alien civilizations and stuff like that, and he was denied access from his own military complex. So what that really boils down to is who has been updated or who has been briefed on what is actually happening on a cosmic level and on an earthly level. And one of the neatest things that I've came to read about is that apparently, Vladimir Putin, this character, this man, is one of the most briefed individuals on the planet about ET contact. So I do believe that perhaps something in the near future, like about him being some type of key, or like a key component or a key player into the upcoming idea of, disclosure. So one more thing really quickly though, a little more off topic. And that's something I'm kind of going through tonight, and maybe this will be a good segue for our episode next time. But the past few months, something I've been actively working on is the ideas of attachment and detachment. We, like I said, we all go through different stages of our lives, different chapters, and we feel like we are what we own, we are what we accomplish, we are what we have. And to really find true peace, like after reading the Tao Te Ching, to really detach from the things that we think are us, but it's actually just our ego, right? I've been able to like give away a lot of my clothes, a lot of the things I have in my house that I don't use. I'm becoming like slowly like I'm more like minimalist, like only holding on to the things that, like, we're not really holding on to anything, because like once we die, it doesn't matter what we have in our pockets. It doesn't matter what we have in our bank account. None of that really, matters. So I'm thinking now, looking at social media and detaching from the ideas of, Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or all of these Democrat and Republican standpoints and political stances. For me personally, I'm able to completely detach from that, okay? And I'm finding a lot of peace in it. So when I'm on Facebook every once in a while and I see someone post something nasty about, you know, Donald Trump or whatever. I don't care. You know, he doesn't bother me. He doesn't bother me. Clinton doesn't bother me. None of them really bother me. It is what it is, you know. And when people post stuff like that, it's whatever. Like, I'm like not invested in it. I'm detached. Okay. So at this point, I'm feeling pretty good about myself, about, you know, detaching from a lot of this stuff and finding peace in my own self, you know, and not being caught up in these political ideas or these material things and stuff like that, right? So now to sort of wrap this up with what I wanted to convey, one of the other things that I came across, you know, in regard to Vladimir Putin, in regard to mud floods, in regard to Tartaria, in regard to all this stuff, is that a lot of the things that happens in our history has been prophesized, okay, and has been orchestrated and is on a plan and is still in motion. And a lot of the things that are in motion was in regard to the U.S. being, you know, holding on to being in wartime for the benefit of other areas of, you know, money-making schemes and stuff like that in regard to the U.S. government. So they wanted to wage war, and they wanted to have an ongoing war. So first, they were going to have war against the communists. You know, that was the big thing. They were like, we'll use the communists, and we'll have and that was been done. And the next, they're going to have terrorists, right? They're going to wage war on terrorism. And we can look back at the time, we can look back at history and see how that's already playing out. You know, communism and then terrorism, and the next war is going to be on extraterrestrial life. And when I read this, I suddenly wasn't detached anymore. I was very, very much involved because my belief, I'm passionate about my experiences and what I've come to understand in regard to ET contact. And, you know, when I was younger, you know, growing up as a Christian, I understood there was a lot of trauma and tribulation with, you know, believing in, you know, Jesus and God, and other people that were atheists thought I was out of my mind, you know, and misled, and there was a separation, okay? So one of the things that I'm fearing, and I hope maybe I'm just projecting, but fearing that there's going to be a time in the future after disclosure is, you know, full on, because I believe that slowly and surely it's happening more and more with each little thing, whether it's things happening on the news, more and more sightings, people awakening, even blockbuster movies, you know, just all these little things getting us more acclimated to the idea of ET life being a part of our lives, you know. There's going to be a big separation, kind of like a separation is now between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, where I'm detached from that. I'm struggling a little bit to detach from the idea of being hostile to ET presence. So
Well,
that's just really interesting for me.
well, there is a split. There's a split between the people with positive beliefs and people with negative beliefs, and the people with more negative beliefs are going to start experiencing more manifestation of that as their reality, and people with positive beliefs are going to be experiencing more of the higher dimensional reality that we were talking about earlier. And those everybody's creating their own individual reality, but they're going to go apart in groups where they're associating with people more like that. Again, everybody is just a reflection of ourselves, so if we don't resonate with that anymore, we can't interface with it anymore. And so there is going to be a sort of war on it, but those that are manifesting ET contact won't experience it like that.
Right.
Yeah. It's another level. Yeah, I mean, and more than ever, I mean, it's so interesting how you're paralleling this to the political climate. Hold on, are you guys there?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had my headset in wrong, but because it's just like, I mean, I'm the same way, Trent. I do not get triggered by the political anything. I just don't. And so there's going to come a time when you might experience being triggered by this war on ETs, and then a time when you won't. And like Cheryl says, if you hold that in your belief system, you will experience a very traumatic thing. But if you, like, for me, what I feel that the universe has been preparing me for is let go of all fear. Fear is
Yeah.
not real. And but then there's other fears that seem to be more justified. You get used to letting go of fear, and then there's some other thing that happens that seems, oh wow, how can I, this is a really big issue. Of course I have to be in fear about this.
The
But
process will be gradual. We'll just all of a sudden be like, oh, of course. It'll phase in like that. So you're facing a lot of your fears now to get it out of the way. That way it'll just be like, oh,
right,
find yourself there.
Right.
right. And it's so, I mean, think about it. There could have been something that happened in 2012 where there was a parallel reality where the planet was wiped out for a lot of people. And then there's a version where it wasn't. And here we are. And so there can be a split where there's this really unfair war on ETs, and then also one where there's not. And I do see myself coming more and more into peace, just peaceful surroundings, like peaceful, more unity.
Yeah.
And the only reason people would be afraid of ETs is because they don't understand ETs. It's the same reason why, I mean, sometimes people throw me shade. Sometimes Cheryl and I have talked about this. Sometimes they throw her shade because they don't understand us. And but I see more and more that people are being forced to learn how to basically get unified with whatever's and whoever is in front of them, whether that be an ET or someone of a different nationality or a different religion or different social class. I think that we do have a say in what we experience. So yeah, but that's really interesting. I could see that happening. First, I could see that happening with in some reality a war on the ETs.
Right.
Maybe there already is a war on ETs, but
Well,
it's a lot of it's
yeah, there's any possible reality, but I kind of see, I don't know, the detachment thing to me, I used to really get into it, and I kind of see it in different ways now. I think a lot of it, what you were talking about, can be, my guide said this to me a lot about a lot of different things that I used to say. They said this can be replaced by the word allowing. And they pretty much told me if it can be replaced by the word allowing, it's kind of more integration here. And so a lot about what you were talking about is actually just releasing any because you're pushing it away, you're not really looking at it. So when I see detachment, I actually see kind of the opposite of like allowing rather than stopping. You see what I mean? Does that make any, it might not be translating good, but there's a lot of things like that. Like you're not feeling any resistance when you look at it. You're like, oh, you know, that's not really doing, it's not really doing anything to you because you're just allowing it. Of course, there's going to be some guy over here talking some crazy stuff and we don't really understand it. And it might seem worse before it gets better. But I see all this as kind of like all politics is water under the bridge if you look at the history of humanity and all the goings on.
Right. Well, I think,
true.
one of the key things there, just like you said, looking at the state of humanity, the state that we could, possibly be in, but a lot of times many of us are conditioned to have certain beliefs, whether it's a fear-based type of thing, because when we have wars, right? I mean, there's some people that, benefit greatly on that. And a lot of what has to do is money, power, and control. So a lot of times people are they're brainwashed and unknowing of how they come to the conclusions that they come to about, communism or terrorism or ETs. So it's like, I don't know. I think what I really mean by like detaching is just sort of being, okay with it, I guess, and not investing so much because it's just, it's okay. Like everything's okay. Like it doesn't really bother me. Just like Ansley said before about like not being moved by, political debates.
Whatever is happening is getting us more toward integration, even if it doesn't appear so. So this is just kind of like what Bashar says, just allowing the higher mind to do its job. Don't question that things
Right.
aren't working out, or that we're not going on the path of least resistance, that we're not going with the flow, because that sometimes doesn't look like you think it's going to look. So you might as well just
Right. I mean, I definitely think that, and this is what I was telling Cheryl the other day, is when people laugh, get angry, or they cry, it
Yeah.
means that they're getting integrated. And so it's actually, let the higher mind do its job. Let the universe expand, and all these belief systems are being overturned. And it can be a mess. Look at your process. You were having the panic attacks and it was messy, but when you got to the other side of it, it was worth it. And so you've already lived through so much, and now it's like we're all three in a position where we can assist others because we've already processed a lot. And we can have, I try to have compassion for people who are they're chemicalizing. It's an alchemical process what they're going through, where their beliefs are getting overturned, and their beliefs are literally changing in front of our very eyes, and they are using things like Trump as a permission slip to feel this rage and just these feelings and these beliefs just shifting and changing, and they're stepping into more individuality, where they're really figuring out what is and is not honest for them, what they can and cannot align with. And it's just it's very interesting to watch. And we all deal with it every day, but it's like there's certain waves that happen.
Right.
So I do believe that the higher mind is doing its job as well. And so it's kind of like I like to use the analogy to birth. Like when I gave birth twice now, it's messy, but it's okay. Now there's a new life here. So I feel like the whole planet, especially this country, is doing that right now. And it's all good. And it's a good thing. I mean, everyone is going to get to line up with a reality that's more honest for them. An earth that is more honest for them. The earth, there's multiple.
It's more in alignment with their true being.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, the lack of borders, it's already occurring. I mean, we're all from different states: New York, Florida, and California. And we're all in this time space reality. And who knows who's going to find this or this show, or when they're going to find it. But it's like the borders really are getting broken down, because people
even if Trump gets his wall, the borders are still getting broken down. We got to accept.
Right. And I love what you were saying earlier, Cheryl, about the merging. Like, we merge with people. Like, the three of us are probably, you know, it's like people merge, right? But like, when does that happen? Just whenever you
All the
start
time.
talking to someone, all the time. Like if I go to the
Well,
grocery
yeah,
store,
if you're thinking about them, you're merging with them. Sometimes you can have, like, even my uncle being able to pull that from my head. I had just obsessed over starting a restaurant. You know, it's kind of like it's happening. It can happen very quick. It can happen in like a millisecond. There's different levels of merging.
mm-hmm.
When you sit with someone and you're like, man, it feels like I have known you forever. Or when you're, wow, it's like me and this person are just one, you know? And when it happens with somebody that it's happened to your whole life, like your mother or your child, or it's subtle, you don't really notice it because you've always taken it for granted. So you're merging with them all the time. And then, you know, if you have a significant other, your husband or your girlfriend, you're merging with them, and then you fall away from them and start hanging out with somebody else. You're vibing with them less, and now you're vibing with this other person more. You're merging with this other person. People you're around at your job, people around everybody and everything, and it's all for a good purpose.
Right.
Every time we merge with somebody, we share our frequency and our DNA, what our DNA is expressing. Because their DNA might have never expressed something like that before. They interface with you, now they're expressing something that you've expressed. And that activates their DNA.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
Bashar is coming to California. Speaking of this, I mean, he lives in California, or the channel, Daryl Anka, lives in California, but he is speaking in LA in February on.
As Bashar?
Yeah.
So he's coming to the Learning Light Foundation, I think. I'm not sure where it is.
It's the LAX airport of some kind, and it's right near the airport, interestingly enough.
Nice.
And I'm looking for the topics. I mean, one of them is something about the past, present, future, and the other is about, it's like a bunch of numbers like 11 and 3, and I'm trying to find it.
Like an episode of Sesame Street.
One of these things just doesn't belong here.
Speaking of merging, when I used to search Bashar on my Google, it used to bring up like the president Bashar, but now it brings up Daryl Anka. Like, so Google's learning my preference of what I'm actually looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, Sunday, February 24th, 2019. Wow, he has this is at the Conscious Life Expo, and the first one is the past, present, and future are within you, which is kind of what you're talking about, Trent, about who is influencing the past, which influences the present, which influences the future.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is the 35711 download, which he explains the main metaphysical principles that form the framework of physical reality and share how to use them to manifest a more abundant, positive, and creative life. And then the past, present, and future, he explains how we use the illusion of time to creatively navigate our path in life. The transmissions are designed specifically for your mind and your imagination to be fully activated, inspired, and to accelerate your personal journey of transformation. So you're right in sync, Trent.
Oh, that's good. Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah. So.
This has been a really good show, you guys.
Yeah, this is great. This was really, really awesome. I'm really glad we decided our topic to be about dreams, and I think it's really neat how we're coming up on a good segue for maybe the next episode to be about maybe more disclosure, or maybe getting closer to AI, true AI. So I usually think like we're moving in that direction as well, and I associate those two things to be pretty similar. I guess we
Okay.
something, or I guess I don't know.
Sounds good.
It's a big neat topic.
I'll think of something.
Yeah. I don't know if you're bored of ET stuff, Cheryl. That's been like an ongoing thing in your life.
Oh God, no! I could just talk indefinitely for the rest of infinity, because there's always something new to learn.
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome, guys. This was such a great show, and thanks again so much for letting me be a part of this.
Oh, thank you guys for joining me. I can't have a show by myself. I mean, I guess I could.
Yeah, I know. That's funny.
It wouldn't be the same. This is great.
What happened to Craig? Wasn't he going to join us at some point?
We're gonna hear more back from him in February. We'll have him on the show.
Cool.
That'll be super fun because he's
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All
Right
right,
on.
you guys.
All right. Well, have a good night, and
Yeah, good night.
much love.
Much love to you all.
Much love.